Blazor and Azure OpenAI. You can consume services in Azure OpenAI with Microsoft Blazor. The sample code, available on the downloads page of this site, blazorhelpwebsite.com, demonstrates how to create a completion using the Text DaVinci 002 model. A completion can logically complete a prompt provided to it or answer simple questions. The Text DaVinci 002 model can also perform other functions such as summarizing documents or classifying or categorizing documents. You can apply for access to Azure OpenAI service at akams/oai/access. You can then go to portal.azure.com and create a resource. Search for the Azure OpenAI service and click Create. In the Keys and Endpoint section, copy the key and the endpoint and save them. You will need them later. After it is created, in the Overview section, click the Explore button. This will take you to a page that provides documentation and code examples. Click on the GPT-3 Playground button. If this is your first time using the Playground, you will be prompted to deploy a model. Select and deploy the Text DaVinci 002 model. After it is deployed, navigate to the GPT-3 section and experiment with creating prompts and seeing the results. We will next demonstrate how to make these calls programmatically using Microsoft Blazor. Using Visual Studio 2022 or higher, create a Blazor server project named Azure OpenAI Beginner. Add the following NuGet packages or OpenAI client and Radzin. Create a file named OpenAI Client Service. Use this code. The code defines a class OpenAI Client Service which acts as a service that wraps the functionality of the OpenAI Client class. The OpenAI Client Service class takes in an instance of OpenAI Client using dependency injection and stores it in a private field OpenAI Client. The class has a single public method getTextCompletionResponse that takes in two arguments, input and max tokens, and returns a completion response as an asynchronous task. The getTextCompletionResponse method calls the getTextCompletionResponse async method on the OpenAI client instance, passing in the completion request instance, and returns the result as a completion response. Note that the completion request class allows for other tuning parameters to be passed such as temperature, frequency penalty, and presence penalty. Open the program.cs file. Add this code to register the OpenAI client service so that it can be called by the remaining code. Finally, add a new Razor control called completionExample.Razor. Add this code for the user interface. This code contains an injection of the OpenAI client service class, created earlier, and a Radzin button component with the text call completion. The button's click event is bound to a method called callCompletion to be created in the next step. There's also a Radzin text area component with its value bound to a property named textValue. Add this code to complete the component. It starts by declaring two variables, completion of type completionResponse and text value of type string with an initial value of 4 and 7 years ago. The code block also contains an asynchronous method called callCompletion that is executed when the callCompletion button is clicked. The callCompletion method checks if the text value is not null. If it's not, it calls the getTextCompletionResponse method on the OpenAI client service instance, passing in text value and 500 as the max tokens argument. The response from the method is stored in the completion variable. After that, it checks if the choice's property of completion has a count greater than 0. If it does, it appends the first choice text to text value and calls the state has changed method, which signals Blazor to update the UI. The Text DaVinci 002 model contains a massive amount of information including pop references.